Hey, seniors, welcome back to the 21-22 school year, your senior year. Congratulations. Things are a lot more normal this year than they were last year. I realize they're not 100%, but I think that we're going to get there, and I think that you're going to have a really nice year. So, welcome back. At the beginning of last year, more than ever, I got a whole bunch of questions, and I'm really not exaggerating. I bet 20 to 30 students contacted me about how to apply for college. They were just really confused. And so I thought I would put together a slideshow video to answer some questions up front. But I do want to say that we have a brand new guidance counseling office this year. And let me go ahead and flip to the next slide. As you can see, all of the names are new except for the beloved Mrs. Hauser, who I've never heard a single bad thing said about. Everybody else is new, and I hope that you'll give your new guidance counselors a chance to answer questions like this because while I can help you write well and I can help you argue well, this isn't exactly my area, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But your guidance counselors really know what they're talking about much better than me. So I realize you don't necessarily know them unless you already had Mrs. Hauser, and I realize that you do know me, and you might trust me, but these are going to be important people in your senior year, and they really can help you with a lot more specifically than I'll be able to. Now, having said that, again, I'm happy to answer questions and to do whatever I can do to help you get into college and help you get scholarship money and things like that. So please feel free to ask me questions, but keep an open mind toward the guidance office as well. So here is generally the order that you do things in. First, you apply, and part of that application will include recommendation letters from teachers and counselors and coaches and things like that, adults in your life. And then you get accepted. And then at the back end of all of this is when you get your money. And by money, I mean, grants and I mean scholarships and things like that that'll help you pay for college. And I realize that that causes a lot of anxiety, right? That you have to apply to these schools, you have to get accepted to these schools. These schools cost tens of thousands of dollars, and yet you don't know if you can afford them until the end of the process. And there is a reason for that, and the reason actually really benefits you in the long run. Obviously, like I said, it causes a lot of anxiety in the short term, and hopefully this slideshow will help overcome some of that anxiety and some of that confusion. But in the long run, it's actually a process that makes a lot of sense and I think benefits you. So let's talk about applying first. Of course, I went to the University of Indianapolis for my undergrad, so I'm throwing that logo up there. In my opinion, most students, most, not all, but most students should apply to three schools. They should apply to a school that they actually don't really think they can get into. Now, I don't mean a school that's impossible to get into. I'm not claiming that, that everybody should apply to Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard, okay? But a school that you're probably, I don't know, 70, 80% sure you're not going to get into. So that's your stretch. That's your stretch school. A school that it's possible, but unlikely that you'll get in because, again, even though it's unlikely, it is possible. And you might be surprised. Then I would suggest that you apply to a school that you are likely to get into, a school that you're 80, 90% sure that you'll get in with your scores and your SAT and your community service and the course load that you've taken over your 4 years at Lowell High School. You think pretty positively that you'll get in there. And then there's the safety, the school that you know you're going to get into. In fact, it's probably a school that not only are you going to get into it, but once you're in, they're probably going to offer you a nice money package as well. So after you do that, you of course ask for recs. And I don't know any teacher who isn't honored to write good students' recommendations. And when you come to me, a lot of times, and you're very nice about it, and You say, do you mind, or you think I'm going to be bothered by it? First of all, it's part of my job to write you a recommendation. Second of all, it's an honor. You have a lot of really good teachers, and I think, I'm not the only person that would say this, but other teachers that I know would say this as well, that when you choose them out of all of your good teachers, that it's an honor to write you that rec. Now, here's one thing that some students have done that I do think is a mistake and can be a little bit of a waste of time. So I would caution you against this. You really don't need to spread your recommendations around. So let's say you're going to apply to 3 colleges, like I said on the previous slide. If each one of those colleges wants 2 recommendations, you only need 2 total recommendations. Like if you were to ask me, or if you were to ask Mr. Hudak, or if you were to ask Mr. Higgins, or whomever to write you a recommendation, then you would then use that recommendation for all of the colleges that you're applying to. I have seen in the past where students have asked for 5 or 6 different teachers to write recommendations and then spread them around. But colleges don't look at recommendations from other colleges. I'm pretty sure they don't even have access to that. So you don't want to waste time in that way. But again, so you'll just use the 1 rec or the 2 recs if that's what's required of you for all of your colleges, and then later on when it's scholarship season, and scholarship season is like March and April and May. It's very easy for me to take your college recommendation. It takes about 30 minutes, I'd say, to write a recommendation for you to go to college. But then if you wanted to use that recommendation for a scholarship, it takes me literally about 1 minute to change it, to edit it into a recommendation for a scholarship. So don't feel like in the spring you can't come to me and ask me to alter that recommendation, because again, it really doesn't take very much time. On to the best part of it all. So after you get accepted, way in the back end of this is the money, right? How are you going to pay for college? And the reason why this is the last step in the process is because, again, let's say you applied to those 3 colleges, and let's just say you got accepted to 2 of the 3, right? You didn't get into your stretch, but you got into your most likely, and you got into your safety school. Well, you're only going to one of those 2, obviously, right? You're not going to go to 2 different colleges, and those 2 different colleges don't know that. They don't know which one you're going to choose. So, because of that, they have to wait until all students are committed to go to their university. And at that point, they can take their money, and all schools have money allocated for scholarships and grants. And a school like an Indiana University or Purdue has in the hundreds of millions of dollars allocated for that type of thing. At that point, they then can take it and they then can divvy it out to everybody who has committed to their school. That's why they really can't do that until the end of this process for most students, because they don't know who's coming and they have to wait to see, and it's based on obviously your credentials. So the last thing that happens is the university package. I had a student, she is now a senior at Purdue, come to me. Gosh, it was late. It was like late April, maybe early May. And she came to me and she said, I haven't gotten any money at all to go to Purdue. And her numbers, I just knew. I knew her based on her SAT score, based on her course load, based on her community service, based on her grade point average. I knew she was going to get money. And based on also, obviously, based on family need. If what she was telling me her parents made was accurate, I knew that she was going to get some money. And she said, Mr. Giannotti, I don't think so. And again, it was late. It was late April. She said, I don't think so. I don't think I'm getting anything to go to Purdue. And I said, I'm pretty sure that you will. Just be patient and give it a little bit of time. And before we got to June 1st, before school was out, she had a full ride to Purdue. So these things do come very late. Sometimes they even come after you've started college. I got a huge scholarship my sophomore year of undergrad based on what I had done my freshman year of undergrad. In fact, it was my biggest scholarship that I ended up getting. So, again, I realize that probably doesn't alleviate any anxiety, but it should give you something to look forward to. So, finally, my last slide. If you're confused, listen, that makes a lot of sense. This is a confusing process. The FAFSA is confusing. My mother and father, my grandmother and grandfather did not go to college. I was the first person to go to college in my family, and I remember my mom going to the school night where they talked to her about the FAFSA, and I remember her being very confused by it. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that confusing, but it is, and that of course creates anxiety in you. One way to be less confused and one way to be less anxious is to ask for help. Um, I'm not saying that that's going to take away all of the confusion and all of the anxiety, but again, ask for help. And I would start with the guidance office. Come to me or come to a trusted teacher if you need them, but your guidance counselor is really the person that's going to be able to help you the most. So I hope that you have a great senior year. If you have any questions or if you need anything, just because you are not in a class with me anymore, unless you're in ed professions, a few of you are, but just because you're not in a class with me anymore does not mean that you are not my student. I look forward to continue working with you. And if you need something, please let me know. I hope you have a terrific senior year, and I hope that as the months go by, we get back to normal and back to normal and back to more normal so that you end up having all the things at the end of this year that you deserve. Have a great year.